Seen you brought up in
I love
Bitch, I'm on that hill smoking on what you call it.
Oh my god. Alright, let's get it started, chat. Today's question of the day. What takes more skill, dive or poke? Okay, me and Tato have been over this a million times. Nigga, this is like the most overly like, this is practically like the #1 hill I'm probably gonna die on forever. Because I'm a dive player. But I'm also aware of poke. I also play poke. I'm just not a poke player. I'm definitely a dive player. And I've always believed that dive took more skill. And I've been willing to hear this argument out for quite some time. And I ain't gonna lie, chat. I'm kind of being convinced over to the poke side a little bit more. But we're gonna get into that once we're done going through all these type shit. So yeah. Poke, of course, it weighs much more on your mental, and you have to calculate how much time you have to stay behind a wall as the healer heal bots you. It's way more hard to hit 2 tapping headshots than it is to dive a team with awareness. Okay, so I see his angle here. And you know, he makes a great point, you know what I'm saying? While you're getting heal botted, you feel what I'm saying? While chilling behind a wall, they're taking an off angle that the enemy poke also has to, you know what I'm saying, poke you at. It just takes so much skill, bro. How would it take more skill than jumping into the enemy teams and tire, you know what I'm saying? It's you know, man, he makes a great point, bro. But obviously, I see what he's going for here. He's basically downplaying poke. And I'll never downplay poke. If anything, I take second place, in my opinion. But I'll never downplay poke. Y'all poke niggas obviously take skill type shit. But yeah. Dive is way more skilled because with poke, all you really got to do is have good aim. But for dive, you have to know the fundamentals of diving, when to dive, know how to get out of the backline and still managing to stay alive and keep up racking up kills to get value. Depends of your own gaming experience. If you ever, and this is not a terrible take, it's just not like completely thought out. Depends of your own gaming experience. If you never touched an aim-based game, poke will be the hardest. If you did, dive will be, but dive is more considered as harder because it's purposely made to be weak in their purpose, which is understandable because they don't want every game to be toxic. For people who don't know how to peel or be divers, but frustrating at once because poke characters, for example, are overtuned compared to dive. That makes complete sense. Like, divers are as weak as they are, because it would be unbearable to play against something that was equally strong as like a hella 2-tap or like a magic double slash, right? It would be unfair to play against. Niggas would like dive would run the game. Dive is where it is, and it's in a perfect spot. Obviously supports are weird, like broken as fuck, but at the end of the day, they're not undivable. The thing is with dive though is like, and you know, further on his point, it makes sense. I see what he's saying. But the question is more or less like generally what takes more skill. Obviously, personally, whatever you have less experience on is going to be, you know what I'm saying? Like, hypothetically, a person picks up the game and decides to just like play dive or poke. I feel like dead ass, after like probably 20 hours. I say 24, 20 hours. If you're not good on that poke character, I ain't gonna lie, you're kind of dog shit. I don't think you should be at your peak. I think maybe around like 30 hours should be your peak. Or just better, right? But with a dive character, bro, you haven't mastered Spidey until you hit like 50 hours. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it takes way longer to master dive. But like, okay, I'm gonna explain my point once we're done with all these now. Poke rewards you for aim and positioning with extremely varying reward ranges between characters, while dive rewards you for your target's poor positioning. If you can secure your pick and if you can get away safely, which also includes what character the target is running. If you can't get value with the divers, you can play cleanup and capitalize off of your plays your teammate makes. Gotta go with poke. Dive relies on external factors that can be set up by teammates if an egoist playstyle isn't working. Meanwhile, poke is entirely skill reliant. Side note, but Poke characters vary. I'm not talking about Squirrel Girl or Moon Knight, where there's forgiveness with their kits, Onks, Ricochet, but more so the characters where attacks must be landed to see value. Hela, Hawkeye, Widow, Mantis. He's kind of spitting though. I see. This is a W point. I ain't gonna lie. This is a W point. If you can't get value with divers and you can't play clean, and you can play cleanup with and capitalize off of your. Jesus Christ! If you can't get value with dive characters, you can play cleanup and capitalize off of plays your teammates make. Gotta go with poke. This is a terrible, like, There's no period. I was trying to read it like intelligently, but it didn't make sense. Gotta go with poke. Dive relies on external factors that can be set up by teammates. If an ego is playstyles and working, while poke is entirely skill reliant. Okay. So basically what he's saying, if dive gets shut down, there's nothing much you can do about it. But if you're on poke, you could just aim better. You could just hit more shots and like turn the game in your favor. And I see what he's saying. I see what he's saying, but that's exactly my point. And I'm gonna get into it. Dive. Poking is just aim. And while, yeah, you do have to be mindful of your positioning, but it's the same with diving. With diving, you have to be mindful of your counters, when to get in and when to get out. Knowing how to dive first, etc., etc. Dive is just objectively harder. This was from Macklem too. Dive. As a Magic, Angela, and Strategist main, it is fairly hard to get value on dive this season, though I won't say this season more than others. Nonetheless, dive is not objectively harder than poke, as poke requires not only skill, but also aim and positioning against dive heavier comps. The argument I will make against poke is that dive requires more learned skill than any other. There are many reasons as to why dive takes more skill. Invis, timing. There are many reasons as to why dive takes more skill. Invis, timing, patience, punishment. Somebody request a song? Bro, we're not listening to... Stop wasting your points. We already listened to that. Ibble woman? What? Punishment heavier for missing a shot or whiffing your engage. Skill floor for a lot of dive characters is a lot higher. CC, a lot of the strategists, duelists, and vanguards have really viable ways for either denying out healing or capitalizing off of your dives. Emma Frost. I'm sure there are more reasons, or I'm 100% wrong and I sound dumb. Either way, these are just my personal observations from playing this game like a social reject. P.S. New to the Discord. I really like that you allow your audience to participate in discussions instead of brain dead chat. Of course, thank you so much, bro. If you're not in the Discord, join the Discord right now, or I'm gonna find you and do something to you. But this is a W point though. This is a 9 out of 10 take, and I'm glad she like he or she actually is it he or she? I don't want to like be disrespectful. I'm glad that they built off this topic like genuinely, because bro, truly I can be convinced. Like I hope niggas don't think I'm dogmatic on the topic. You can convince me that poke is harder. You just have to fucking do it. And honestly, every time I think, okay, well, poke has this, and then I'm like, wait, but dive has this, and it's just like I feel like it's genuinely a nothing burger, bro. I'm gonna say poke because I just think how much you require to aim is so compared to dive. It's so high compared to dive, because if you're not hitting anything, you're low-key throwing. Yeah, but if you miss, you shoot again. If you dash and miss, you die. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's why it's like I promise you, I can be convinced. Y'all just gotta really do it, bro. Alright, let's go. Who does this nigga think he is, bro? We're gonna talk about skill ceiling and skill floor for both playstyles. Oh, I already talked to Aflo about this. He's the one that really like is like getting to me, bro. First of all, skill floor dive takes this easily. In order to actually get a minimum amount of value with dive, you need way more game sense, mechanical skill, etc., etc. This alone makes the floor way higher. Point proven. Moving to skill ceiling, yeah, it's poke. Poke is primarily hit scan. There's no cap on raw aim. You can cap out on the combos you could do with the dive, but you can't with aim. No one's ever going to get 100% accuracy 100% at headshots. It's simply not arguably. This nigga was probably drunk while typing this, but I see what he's saying. And this is going to come along with my main point at the end. Dive has three things: mechanical skill, timing, and risk management. You also have to keep track of the enemy's CDs like cooldowns, like Loki's runes, Adam Soban, and ults and stuff. And even if you manage to do all this, then you have to get the fuck out of there before the enemy team jumps you. Poke has two things: aim and consistency, and no risk unless you dive as a poke. There's no risk for a poke character since they're always normally behind their tanks, and even if they miss their shots, they still live unlike a dive but you can dive as a poke character, but we won't get into that since we are on about just poke. Jesus Christ. Yo, stay in school, my nigga. In conclusion, for a dive character, that the margin of error is much higher than a poke character missing a few shots and still living, so dive takes more skill. Basically, he's saying that since poke is a bit more forgiving, and a lot of niggas like to say, oh, if you're not taking off angles on poke and you're sitting with supports and blah, 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 then you're not poking right. There's more than one, like, you don't have to be at an off angle. And that's the thing. If you're constantly at an off angle, then obviously that's what I'm saying. Like, everybody has to have situational awareness. Everybody has to, like, if you want motion, you can't poke, you can't just spam the front line. I feel like that's very 101 type knowledge. Am I tripping? But bro, I I feel like if you're not getting in the ass of the opponent constantly, if you're poking in the front line, only the tanks, unless the tanks are literally hulking the thing, bro, I feel like you're doing something wrong, truly. Because it's like that's basic knowledge, bro. You don't spam frontline unless like you can just one shot the front line. Like I just wouldn't do that unless you're like truly going for ult charge or something. There's like has to be an ulterior motive to shoot the front line. I always go off angle. Even with Bucky, I peel and I go off angle, bro. I find something. I don't shoot front line unless it's unless Strange is just holding up his shield the whole time. Like I don't know. I feel like that's very like basic knowledge. Dive, I played both, and I found that dive has to close space, and poke has to keep space. Keeping space can be tricky if you don't know map knowledge, but if you're always positioned in a way to where you have visible knowledge to where dive will come from, the dive has to expose himself to you and a few others and have to work through that. However, if the dive has two angles, like if it's capped to go in as a sponge, clean up distraction, you can be more reckless. If you're on magic, size Spidey because they have to kill one of you, and that's hard. If you're quick, it'll be harder for them to execute anti-dive. But if you run Bucky or Phoenix, Hela, Emma, Mag, I think at least two of them can kill 350 HP and below in a couple seconds, as long as both are looking. I don't know why it's kind of hard to decide because I've never had an issue with aiming. I found it easier to play. Hela and Click just get kills. If I want support, I just hop on Mantis and keep an ear out for dive. One sleep spells death. Damn. And if it's multiple dive, they fail the engage and two divers die. It's now a 4v6 or a 4v5 if it's a trade. W take. Okay. I see. W take. I ain't gonna let you niggas spitting though. Poke. The reason I think poke is because there's almost an infinite ceiling with your aim. If dive, there's only so much combos you can do on one character like BP. What you can do besides spear dash, spear dash, spear dash, spear dash dash as viable combos. I think poke just has infinite skill ceiling when it comes to aim. That is a W take. That is a literal like that's like true. I can't disagree with that. Dive. Have to use all your resources for a pick, knowing when to get in and out, making sure you hit your abilities, and making sure you have a way of escaping if you don't, as well being limited to a roster of mediocre heroes minus Daredevil. W take. I think they're both difficult in their own right. Hela is just aiming, and Dive takes a lot more technical skill. Both take a lot of consideration of the enemy team and your own positioning, though I think Dive takes it because of how hard it can be to force it through your counters. Mitt is spitting. Now let's get into that. Right? Because like Aflo said, they're neck and neck when it comes to floor and the ceiling, right? The skill floor is way more vast than it is for poke because of the amount of combos you can do, the amount of ways you can get value. Again, that's why Spidey is the most mechanically like skillful character in the game, right? Again, that's the character that takes the most skill in the game is Spider-Man. Disagree if you want. But there are so many ways to get value on Spider-Man. There are so many combos. You can kill anybody besides the Thing. You can like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's so many, and Thor, I guess. And Angela. There's so many ways to get value, bro. There's so many, like, bro. On Spider-Man, you can pull tanks. You can pull anybody off the map. You can yo-yo anybody. You can fucking Hydra. Like, there's so many ways to get value. But it takes so much skill to be able to decide and know and prepare and manage doing all of that at once. Only the smartest Spideys would ever pull a Strange off the map because they either know they don't have their flight or they either know they're gonna uppercut him right after to knock him down. And even then, the pit has to be really low or small. You know what I'm saying? What else? But this is my argument, right? I think Dive takes more skill than Poke. Because, again, they're neck and neck. Poke has an infinite like ceiling in terms of skill because you can always aim better. Y'all got that 100%, right? It's infinite. It's literally infinite. It's like it's unfortunate, but I said unfortunate. It's literally infinite. But in terms of Marvel rivals, think about Marvel rivals and the characters that are in this game, right? Diving takes more skill, more effort, more mechanical intelligence, more better positioning, right? If you want to make the argument that, oh, you got to position yourself different, et cetera, you risk doing this, that, and the third. You're positioning yourself. Now imagine that, but you're positioning yourself in the enemy back line. Exactly, right? And again, one of the biggest arguments, you can compare, and if you don't agree with this, I don't know. Okay, chat, can we agree that we can compare BP's dash and Hella's primary shot. Can we compare those two? Can we come to an agreement that both of those are basically each other's, like, that's their whole kit? Hella's primary is the strongest thing in her kit, and BP's dash is the strongest thing in his kit. Can we agree on that, please? So if BP uses his dash and misses, describe to me what happens. He basically either A, dies or has to wait another 10 seconds. Hella misses her shot, she shoots again, right? And that's not to say, oh, by that definition, it takes, you know what I'm saying, et cetera, et cetera. The penalty, it's, it puts more pressure, right? Because you can miss a couple shots. You can't miss a dash. And that's also one of my biggest arguments. You have to be perfect to play this fucking role, dude. You have, like, deadass, you have to play perfect, especially nowadays, because everything counters dive. Everything. There's not nothing that counters dive. Nigga, dive counters dive. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro, there's not a single, you feel what I'm saying? When it comes to poke, sometimes you just can't get near them niggas. There's like, bro, dive doesn't counter anything besides supports and poke. Poke, it counters poke, but it's soft. It's like I wouldn't say it's soft. I'd say it's like a pretty decent counter, especially if you're overwhelming them. But again, you have characters like Bucky. Bucky's banned. You got characters like Namor. Namor's banned. You got characters like Didi. Didi's banned. You got characters like Emma Frost. Emma Frost is banned. You got characters like Mag. You got characters like, fuck it, Wanda, Gambit, nigga. There's so many, bro, there's so many fucking counters. Everything counters dive in this game, okay? And when it comes now, especially nowadays, bro, where everybody just hates dive for some reason, if you're not perfect with dive, you will lose. And that's why I believe, me personally, right? That's why I believe, me personally, dive is way harder than poke. Because dive requires perfection, as poke requires you to, like, have over like 40% accuracy to be consistent. Dive also requires aim. Every dive has aim-based abilities that can't be missed. Exactly. And what's crazy is that their aim-based abilities, they genuinely can't be taken for granted sometimes, bro. Because missing anything, right, with a dive character, besides maybe Magic Slash, I think Magic is one of the easier dives. And obviously, Iris doesn't have like a projectile. If you miss a Spidey cluster, they hear that and they prepare everything for you. Now you're caught. Now the whole team's waiting for you to do anything, right? If you miss a spear, or even if you hit the fucking spear, bro, it's like, it don't matter. Dive, it requires perfection. Poke doesn't. It's that simple. There's way more lenience and way more damage as well. It is like literally easier to play poke. It is literally, it's easier. Every time I'm struggling on dive, I hop on Bucky. I hop on Namor. Well, actually, not. I start games on Namor. I don't swap Namor. I ain't no bitch ass nigga. But either I start the game on Namor or I straight up don't play him. But what's it called? When it comes to characters like fucking and a lot of dive mains, they swap to Punisher when they're fucking getting like destroyed on dive, bro. I'm trying to tell you, bro. I'm 10 toes on this shit, my nigga. If it requires perfection in order to play this role, like deadass. That's why dive in Marvel Rivals, the concept of aim versus melee, sure, y'all niggas got it. Aim is obviously harder than punching niggas. No shit. But I'm saying it will always take more skill to dive because you can't fuck up. You deadass can't. You can't. There's no room for error. Zero. And I rest my case.